Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down a rapidly escalating situation that is sending shockwaves through Europe, Washington, and Moscow. Vladimir Putin's hybrid war strategy, once praised inside the Kremlin as a genius asymmetric tool, is now backfiring dramatically. And the latest intelligence signals suggest something no one expected. NATO preparing the framework for what analysts are calling the possibility of a preemptive military response if Russia crosses one more red line. This isn't just cyber skirmishes or drone interceptions anymore. It's a geopolitical collision course that could redefine global security for decades. Putin's hybrid warfare has relied heavily on deniable tactics, cyber attacks, political interference, sabotage operations across Europe, and covert military support to proxy forces. For years, this allowed Russia to strike without triggering direct confrontation. But the strategy that once gave Moscow leverage is now triggering the opposite effect. Instead of dividing NATO, it has unified it like never before. Member states, especially in Eastern Europe, are no longer debating if Russia is willing to escalate. They're preparing for the moment it inevitably will. And that shift in mindset is what makes this moment so dangerous. The backfire began with a wave of aggressive Russian operations that crossed what NATO leaders considered the threshold of acceptable gray zone. Conflict, explosions near critical infrastructure in the Baltic states, mysterious drone sightings near NATO bases, and repeated cyberattacks targeting power grids have all forced the alliance to reassess its tolerance. For many NATO governments, these aren't random incidents. They're coordinated signals that Russia is testing how far it can push without provoking a response. But this time, the alliance is no longer willing to absorb the hit and move on. The turning point, according to defense officials, came when evidence surfaced linking Russian intelligence units to sabotage attempts on NATO logistics routes supplying Ukraine. These weren't symbolic acts. They were direct attempts to disrupt alliance operations. And for NATO, that crosses into attack territory. The calculus is shifting from reactive defense to proactive deterrence. In plain terms, NATO is preparing to strike first if Russia launches another hybrid assault that threatens alliance security or territorial integrity. Behind closed doors, NATO's military command is developing readiness protocols that would activate within hours of a confirmed Russian hybrid attack. These include cyber counterstrikes, disabling Russian command and control networks, and the movement of air and missile defenses toward the eastern flank. For the first time, multiple NATO states are openly discussing treating hybrid warfare as equivalent to conventional aggression under Article 5. That means a cyber attack causing widespread damage could legally trigger a collective military response. Putin didn't anticipate this level of unity. His strategy depended on political divisions, slow decision making, and hesitation within the alliance, but the reverse is happening. Countries that once pushed for dialogue, like Germany, France, and Italy, are now quietly aligned with Poland, the UK, and the Baltic states in calling for firmer action. Russia's attempts to sow chaos have instead created a hardened NATO that sees Moscow not as a negotiator, but as an active, ongoing threat. Inside the Kremlin, this shift has generated panic. Russian generals are warning Putin that NATO is no longer playing by the old rules. The alliance is no longer waiting for Moscow to escalate. It's preparing to respond to early signs of aggression. This undermines the foundation of hybrid warfare itself. Its power lies in ambiguity, in leaving the opponent unsure who's behind an attack. But NATO has changed the game by declaring that attribution isn't required for action. Patterns, intelligence indicators, and operational signatures are enough to trigger a response. At the same time, Russia's conventional military is stretched thin. With losses in Ukraine mounting and sanctions hitting hard, Moscow is struggling to replenish equipment, ammunition, and manpower. This makes hybrid warfare more important for Russia than ever. But as NATO strengthens its cyber defenses, shares intelligence in real time, and deploys more surveillance assets, Moscow's hybrid capabilities are becoming less effective and more risky. The fear within Russian leadership circles is that one miscalculated operation could lead to a devastating NATO counterstrike. Meanwhile, NATO's preparations go beyond cyber and intelligence measures. Several member states have moved additional fighter jets, missile, defense systems, and rapid reaction troops to key strategic locations. The U.S. has increased aerial patrols over the Baltic Sea and stepped up monitoring of Russian missile sites in Kaliningrad. The UK and Poland are coordinating joint intelligence hubs capable of tracking Russian covert actions as they unfold. Even smaller NATO members like Lithuania, Estonia, and Slovakia are upgrading their early warning systems and training to counter sabotage teams disguised as civilians. The message is unmistakable. If Russia continues to escalate its hybrid attacks, NATO will not only defend, it may act first to neutralize the threat. This doesn't guarantee a large-scale war, but it does mean the margin for error is shrinking fast. Every cyber intrusion, every drone flight, every suspicious explosion could now trigger a cascade of military decisions. And in a nuclear-armed confrontation, miscalculation is the most dangerous currency of all. Putin's inner circle reportedly believed NATO would tire out, lose focus, or fracture under the weight of supporting Ukraine. But the opposite is happening. The alliance is becoming faster, more coordinated, and more capable of defending against non-traditional threats. Russia's attempt to weaken NATO has instead forced member states to modernize their militaries, share intelligence at unprecedented levels, and prepare for rapid retaliation. In other words, hybrid war has created the preconditions for exactly the kind of confrontation Russia hoped to avoid. In Washington, policymakers are warning that the next phase of the conflict won't be fought only on Ukrainian territory. It will unfold across cyberspace, through intelligence networks, and potentially along the borders of NATO countries. And if Russia launches a hybrid attack that results in casualties or major infrastructure damage, the U.S. and its allies are prepared to respond with coordinated force. That kind of posture hasn't been seen since the Cold War. For everyday citizens across Europe, this escalating tension means more military movement, more security warnings, and a growing possibility that the Russia-NATO confrontation could spill over into direct conflict. While leaders insist they're working to prevent a wider war, the preparations being made tell a different story, one where NATO is bracing for scenarios they once considered unthinkable. In the end, Putin's hybrid war, designed to confuse, weaken, and intimidate the West, has achieved the opposite. It has united NATO, accelerated its military readiness, and pushed the alliance closer to adopting a doctrine of preemptive response. And as both sides move into a phase of heightened alert, the world is watching closely. Because one wrong move, one unclaimed attack, one ambiguous cyber incident could ignite a confrontation that neither side can easily contain. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned as we continue to track every major development in this rapidly evolving conflict.